address this morning, I must say that you have a gift. I'm glad that Assembly has turned also into a forum for identifying and nurturing gifts. It's part of the vision of the college by which it is and must remain a nursery for human growth. And I'm glad that all of you are making use of such opportunities as are not available in other colleges or anywhere else in this country, and you attach due value to these. And I would like all of you to volunteer to do this kind of work through the Assembly so that your hidden talents can be brought out and promoted. I'm of the opinion, and perhaps Elena will agree with me, that if this opportunity were not available through the Assembly, perhaps you would have had a silent passage through college. Am I right? Yes. This sometimes happens. All right, now we are going to slowly get used to this very familiar word, which is seek. By the way, it is not the unfamiliar that we need to make acquaintance with. It is the most familiar that we need to make friends with, because it's the most familiar that we don't understand. I don't know if you have thought about it. Because the familiar things are always handled in a casual, habitual, mechanical fashion. When we encounter the unfamiliar, a certain degree of curiosity is active, and therefore instinctively we may seek. We may not go very far because the culture of seeking is not consolidated in us, but still we will seek. For example, if you come across a new word, you may turn to the dictionary and try and find out its lexical meaning. By the way, the dictionary will never give you the complete meaning of a sentence or of a word, the total scope of a word, because a dictionary is a very limited instrument, extremely useful but very, very limited. Even the Oxford English Dictionary, which you must consult, but remember that the lexical meaning does not exhaust the total scope of a word. And by now, having encountered the word ask, you will certainly be convinced. Over a period of more than 2 months, we've been trying to look at this one word from different angles. Surely, no dictionary in the world will give you that kind of semantic expansiveness, experiential expansiveness about a word. Now, taking up this word seek, which in my last address I tried to indicate is at the very heart of human progress. In every sense of the concept of progress. I did say, for example, that every spiritually sensitive person was a seeker. And spirituality is a domain of seeking, which is its principal contrast with religion. Religion does not allow, much less encourage, seeking. Religion becomes a domain of dogma. Dogma is simply to be accepted, not to be sought. It will be thrust upon you. You cannot question any dogma. The moment you do that, you're out. And this is how the religious culture becomes counterproductive. What we need is not religion, what we need is spirituality. And spirituality is about seeking. Right? Now, I also very briefly indicated that what we need to seek is the fullness of everything. All right? The fullness of everything. This is what we have to see. All right? Now, fullness of everything is perhaps the most comprehensive formulation I can possibly offer to you, because it covers everything. Let's take a familiar illustration. Now, you read a chapter, let's say. You read a chapter from any book. Now, you can read that chapter, keeping in mind the examination, constantly asking the question, will a question be asked from this chapter or not? And if you have the kind of intuition that maybe no question will come, your reading of that chapter is very, very casual. Maybe you may not even read that chapter, you will move on to the next chapter. Suppose you read the very same chapter in order to understand life. Then your experience of that chapter is very different. It is different on the first reading. But then when having read the first time, you realize that there is something about that chapter that you haven't understood. It's a bit unfamiliar. And you go back and read the same chapter again. And on second reading you found that not only that particular aspect which you did not understand all that well, there were other things as well which were interconnected. So you say, that's interesting, isn't it? This chapter is a little different from what I thought it was. So you think about it in your, walks, the private time that you have. You think about some things you have read in that chapter, and you say, well, there is something more interesting in that chapter. So I'm going to go back and read it a third time. And the third time you read it so deep, that you suddenly discover a new world altogether. And you say, well, this chapter was completely different from, this chapter is completely different from what it was when I read the first time. So reading must become a continuous seeking after fullness. The fullness of a chapter is experienced only when your mind becomes completely attuned to the mind of the author. You become one with the author, and you're able to feel so happily at home in that world of words through which the author seeks to share his or her mind with you, after all, which is the purpose of writing. The purpose of writing is not to put together some words. The purpose of writing is to establish a state of communion between you and a world of people out there, many of them you will never see in your life. But there is that world of unseen communion that you somehow experience, perhaps in the marrow of your bones. And that experience is very different from reading a chapter, keeping examination in mind. Let me take another illustration. Friendship. Friendship, right? Now, friendship can be experienced at various levels. Well, you can have this idea of friendship, that, a friend is a very convenient thing to have, right? And that's what we might call the instrumental understanding of friendship. The friend as an instrument, in a very noble way we say, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Right? Now, even otherwise, the friend must remain the friend. Suppose your friend fails to meet your need on a particular instance. Maybe he was not equal to it. Maybe he was indisposed. Maybe he was preoccupied with other things. Maybe he was battling some secret problem. Who knows? Will your friendship end that day? It should not. It should not. Now, friendship can become so deep that it becomes one of the greatest sources of enrichment in our life. Whether it is friendship or any other kind of relationship, the purpose of every relationship is our personal growth, and growth is always towards fullness. You see, all of us embody, encapsulate, hold within ourselves immense and incredible possibilities. And the challenge really is to bring up and to bring out. That's what education is. Education is a word of Latin origin which has two meanings integrated into one. The first meaning is to bring up, because your potentials remain deeply hidden down below. So they have to be brought up to the surface. But that's not enough. To bring up and to bring out. Okay? So this kind of a growth, vertical and horizontal growth, is what is required. And everything given to us, whether it is education, whether it is relationship, whether it is work, everything given to us has one common purpose, and that's our personal growth. And that personal growth depends very radically on what we are oriented to. If, for example, your idea of friendship is to make use of X, Y, or Z, instead of growing, you will shrivel. You will corrupt yourself. You will regress. So, every relationship must become a theater, a medium of seeking. What is a good relationship? A good relationship is one in which I seek the other. And therefore, through a good relationship, both parties grow. A relationship in which the two persons involved in it stagnate is not a good relationship. It's not even a relationship. It's only some kind of an arrangement. Relationship is a very profound thing. Alina made a reference to Tolstoy. Tolstoy has a small book titled Of Life. Then he says, if you distill everything in spirituality, it comes down to just one word, and that is relationship. Two kinds of relationship: vertical relationship, horizontal relationship. Vertical with God, horizontal with fellow human beings. This is the sum and substance of life. But relationships are given to us as a medium of growth. The two persons involved in a relationship must continually spur each other on, help each other on to higher levels of experience, of self-understanding, of happiness, of achievement. A relationship that is not predicated on growth is a liability. Right? So, the dynamism that safeguards the happiness and health of a relationship is the seeking within it. Now, if you exclude the discipline of seeking from a relationship, what will happen is that the two persons involved in a relationship will remain strangers to each other for the rest of their life. They may be living in the same house, in the same room. They may be husband and wife, but they may never really know each other. Right? There is a play, I think, by Brecht, in which a man and a woman meet in a park. They begin a conversation, and through the conversation, they begin to ask, where do you live? So the lady says, I live in that street. which side of the street? She says on the right hand of the street as you go from this side. He says that's very interesting because that's where I also live. So then he says, but which block of buildings? So she gives the details. He says that's even more interesting because I live in the same building. So then he asks, but which apartments do you live in? And she gives the number of the apartment. This is absolutely mind-boggling. I live in the same apartment. And then they find out that they're husband and wife. The point that Brecht makes is that the fact that we are together does not mean that we understand each other. The fact that you spent 3 years in St. Stephen's College does not mean necessarily that you understand the college. You must seek St. Stephen's College. Unfortunately, generations prior to you did not do it. And if you don't seek St. Stephen's College, what you do is you create your own fiction. You say, this is St. Stephen's College, and this is what the college is suffering from. Nobody really sought St. Stephen's. Instead, people came together and created their own myths and canards, their own private stories, and so that is St. Stephen's College. The same thing happens in private personal relationships. We are a bunch of strangers. What is lost from contemporary life is the sweetness of intimacy. Now, unfortunately, intimacy is understood only in sexual terms, and I'm going to be explicit with you. That's not the case. Intimacy is the abrogation, abolition, or overcoming of estrangement, distance. You know, you can know a person from a distance. You can also know the same person from close proximity by participating in that person's life, by sharing his or her struggle, by trying to understand what that person is trying to do, by seeking that person. One of the greatest tragedies of modern life is that nobody is seeking anybody. Everybody arbitrarily creates one's own fictions and insists that this is the truth about you. I will tell you who you are. I know that you are a nitwit. I know that you are good for nothing. I know you are a communalist. I know you are a terrorist. Nobody is trying to find out anything at all. People are simply handling assumptions and presumptions without taking the slightest effort to find out the truth. And what is the reason for it? The reason for it is the complete rejection of the culture of seeking. Now, if you remember, in the Indian culture, we had a great and wonderful emphasis on hospitality. Aditi Devo Bhava. The idea of receiving the other as a guest. Now, why do you think is hospitality so important? Hospitality is not a social practice. Hospitality is a spiritual exercise. That's how it was in our country. That's how it was with the Judaic people. Where the same emphasis, the same idea that by practicing hospitality, you're actually playing host to God is found in the Judeo-Christian faith, it's found in Hindu spiritual vision. There is absolutely no difference. Why do you think it is so? Hospitality does not mean stuffing somebody with food. It's a total misconception. You can practice hospitality even if you are the poorest in the world without being able to offer a morsel of food, not even mince cutlet. Okay? Hospitality simply means accepting the other as the other, what and all. Now the question is, why should you accept the other person? Why should you accept the other person to come into your house? Actually, to come into your life. Because this is the best arrangement for seeking the other, for understanding the other, for experiencing the other. You would have noticed that in modern times, hospitality is dead. You know, I remember in 1971 when I first went to Agra, I went with my uncle and family. We didn't have a hotel booking. Our travel plans went all right, and we had a breakdown of the vehicle. By the time we reached Agra, it was 8 o'clock, and all hotel rooms were booked. So my uncle had a phone number of a particular Bajpai. We did not know him all that well. He worked with the telephones in Agra. Very ordinary family. So he said, okay, let's go and find out from him as to where we might get a room. So we went to Mr. Bajpai, a very small house. Bajpai was sitting on the veranda. And as soon as we introduced ourselves, he got up. So my uncle said, would you please help us locate a hotel where a room might be found? He said, what? No hotel. You will stay with us. Small house. Then he quoted this. We were almost strangers to Mr. Bajpai. And that is an unforgettable experience for me. Suddenly all kinds of walls crumbled. I will never forget Mr. Bajpai, the way he sat, the way he talked, the way he dealt with the situation. That was our culture. We've lost all that. Now, if somebody comes at 8 o'clock, you will call the police saying, terrorists have come. Aao, bachao. That is a change that has happened. It's a terrible thing. We have lost our very foundations. So, all of life must be an experience of seeking, and we will certainly discover more of this as days go by. Let's rise for prayer.